Hello and welcome to Lonesome Mythtakes, a thing I'm doing because I'm desperately trying to scream into the void and hope this will allow me to generate some thoughts and ideas that may prove useful to me in the future. Let me introduce myself. My name is Chris and I run a podcast along with my very good friend Aaron. It is called Mythtakes Happen. What a fun pun. You can check us out in the links below. We have started a world-building podcast after deciding there are just not enough straight, white, middle-aged male voices in the hobby. Sorry, I can't even say that with a straight face, to be honest. I think there are some really wonderful creators out there who do not fit that description at all, and you should almost certainly be checking out their work over ours. That's terrible self-promotion, actually. So please do check out our work. We have some episodes out now, some bonus episodes as well, including content that is good. And we both are busy adult humans, but we try to put as much polish into this stuff as possible right now. That's not really the point. What is the point? I don't know, man. I want to talk about a bunch of stuff, creativity and what that means to me. I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff, especially in these dark times. It's 2025, and we are living in the last great age of our civilization, and never shall we see its like again. It's overselling it, I think. I theorize our decline will be gradual, but punctuated kind of with sudden and tragic violence, but I would love to be proven wrong. There's a generational component, I believe, to how I feel as a millennial. When I was growing up, and as a teenager, there was a great sense of the world emerging and evolving from a savage state and transforming into something wonderful. You could really imagine an incredible, miraculous future. And also I'm aging, which is not conducive, I think, to making reasonable assessments of the future at all. But look at the news, guys. Let's talk about creativity. That's what I want to talk about. I want to give some background that I suspect will sound familiar to people around my age with my basic face and background. Like many colossal nerds, I spent a long time creating in my teenage years, art, stories, role-playing games. I wanted more than anything at one point to be a writer. And I even went to university to pursue this as a field of study. I did a major in children's literature and a minor in religious studies. It turned out that university actually was a pretty depressing place to a creative at the time. Or actually, I'm just realizing this as I'm saying it, so let's not paint it with such a broad brush. Perhaps it was me who was the problem. I was under the sorceress spell of some heavy depression back then. I found that my tutors to be really disparaging of writing as a career. I don't know if they wanted to put things in perspective for us, or perhaps that was it. But to me at the time, with these very strong messaging from every one of the people meant to help us hone our skills. You will not succeed. You will never make money from this. You should not look at this as a viable career. Get ready to make fries. Anyway, long story short, I only very recently sprung up from the depression mines. I have excavated, I think, the largest possible chunks of this common mineral, and I am very uninterested in returning there ever again. So hopefully my medication holds, and hopefully nothing drastic happens to upend my life. Hopefully, etc. So yeah, look, let's talk about creativity. What is it? Why should we do it? Why am I doing a world-building podcast with Aaron? I won't speak for him, of course. This video is only really about me. And I want to be very clear that I am not an expert, an academic, a rabbi, or any other kind of wizard whose word you can take as sagacity worthy of following. As always, these are just the opinions of a 40-year-old guy. So I want to start with the last question there, right? The world-building part. Mythtakes Happen, something I'm very excited about. I'm passionate about this. It is primarily a result of me getting off my ass finally and realizing with swift and brutal clarity that my life is not infinite. There are many younger people, a lot wiser than I am, capable of such transcendent creation that sometimes it makes me feel that all of my output is worthless. But I am here to tell you that this thought process, brought to its logical conclusion, basically creates an absolutely pointless existence, or its bitter end. Because at the end of the day, you must acknowledge that in a world of over 8 billion individuals, there are at least hundreds of thousands of people better than you at anything. That's not why you create. That's not why you should create, to be better than someone. You create because by the very process of creation, you are helping give shape to something that would never exist without you. That's worthwhile. So I have had an idea for a world building podcast for several years now, but I never pulled the trigger on it. And why not? There are better podcasts out there, probably. I listen to Dungeons and Daddies, The Adventure Zone, all the good ones. And the quality of the content and the passion of these creators and their fans is absolutely astounding to me. Like a lot of things that propel middle-aged men to action. I turned 37 a few years ago, then 38 and so on. And, you know how linear time works, I assume. And I realized, Jesus Christ, a world exists in which I create nothing. And that is the world I am living in now. I am propping up this world. But a better version of this reality can be achieved so simply by just starting something. And so I have returned to writing, to drawing, to making art. I have written several short stories. I'm working on several more. I'm sending my efforts out there in the numbers game of publishing. I have a nice little spreadsheet of all my rejections, which I am immensely proud of because it proves that I tried. Maybe if by the last of my days I don't get anywhere, maybe I get to be sad or bitter at that point. But right now, I am doing something. And this is true of Mythtakes Happen. We did a pilot episode you can check out called Shadows over Yaranga. It's a self-contained cosmic horror setting set in a small Queensland town. We put effort into this one. There's a free PDF you can have that's linked in the episode descriptions, and we're working on a D&D fantasy type setting which takes place around a city called Heliacon, partitioned by two imperial powers after their last great conflict. As I am making this video, we're up to episode 2 that's been published, as well as several bonus episodes. We are still finding our feet at this point, but I got to say, that's kind of part of the process. So one thing I'm very passionate about is exploring the idea of the creative process, apart from the end product, just separating those two concepts from one another. That stuff is great. I do think that stuff is really good, but it's the activity of making something that's important to me right now. So what you'll hear in some of our recordings is times when we goof up, times where we maybe contradict ourselves, moments, and whole episodes where maybe our sound editing didn't work out exactly how we wanted it. There's a simple solution to many of these in a podcast, and that's to simply re-record them. But for this project, at least, I really wanted to help others understand what it means to make this stuff, to contextualize for the audience that the beautiful and perfectly polished creations we all consume are created for our entertainment, but they do not reflect creative process, only its apex, only its conclusion, the end product. Our world-building podcast, I hope, is something where we can go into the nitty-gritty of creation, where we can have an honest conversation about why we make the choices we do and what those choices mean at any given time. And this isn't to say that we don't try to do a good job, far from it. We want the experience of watching this world of ours grow, listening to us to be an interesting one and pleasant one for the audience. So we want to reward listeners with entertainment, context, and practical materials they can use in their role-playing endeavors. Look, we're getting real artists that we pay using real money to contribute to our final PDF, and Aaron is doing all of the layout, and I am doing some of the art. So if you see some really shit art, you can blame me for that. This project is something that we have a real passion for and an interest in. Hopefully there'll be a season 2. That's the hope. I have so many ideas for it. So does Aaron, probably more than me, because he has a special mind. He has a very special mind. There was a very important artistic movement. This is something I want to get into just very briefly. It's in the way of over-intellectualizing what we do. There was a very important artistic movement in the 1960s, which is kind of in the deep past of our world for younger listeners. It may as well have never happened. So long ago did it make its mark upon the earth. But it was called process art. It's related to other artistic movements at the time, Dadaism and improvisational art, and I think it's called arte prevera in a way. If you have an opinion on this, let me know. I love learning new stuff. And as I said, I'm not an expert on any topic, actually. But anyway, process art held that the primary focus of art is its creation. It's the movements, the thoughts, the processes that go into the creation of something that are important as expressions of life itself. In short, making something is how you demonstrate your humanity. It's how you fulfill that fundamental aspect of what separates us from the rest of the natural world, that ultimately we are the creators, designers, and architects of our world. Which, I mean, you could look at that in fairly depressing tones, I think. Process art is clarity. It's an honest expression of humanity. It is human endeavor and potential. So what we do with that is up for debate always. So that's ultimately what I think that we're doing. I want to lay bare the process. So don't get me wrong, we edit our work, we put effort into it, but I want to present the audience with a reality that says to them, this is achievable. You can do this. No act of creation emerges fully formed, and no production ever is without its challenges, structural or superficial. If you are at all familiar with the musician Kosugi Takehisa, he's a famous Japanese violinist and composer, and he worked in this fascinating environment, heavily influenced by this kind of thinking. In the 60s and the 70s, he was part of this artistic community / movement that called itself Fluxus. And it too was all about the conceptual dimension of art and making things. Fluxus, I think, took a lot of the concepts from process art and its related movements. So you should check out some of Kosugi Takehisa's pieces. Really weird stuff, some of it. Some of it is unpleasant to listen to, but these pieces were, in this thought process, superfluous to the real creative toil of creation. The 60s and 70s were rife with this kind of stuff. Look it up if you like. I'm over-intellectualizing something pretty straightforward again. I like doing that. But all that we are doing is making places for elves and dwarves and goblins to live in. We're filling in empty spaces while leaving enough in the dark that a potential player or game master, if you're using our work for a TTRPG setting, is able to imagine anything there. But that's mostly what creativity is, right? It's doing stuff. It's creating things that you yourself enjoy. Will it find a foothold? Will it find an audience? Is that necessary? As someone who knows absolutely how few people have listened to our stuff so far, I say hopefully, maybe. But again, that's not really the point. I tell myself when I start any project that I am doing this because there is something inside of my brain that needs to be out of it. And that's ultimately enough. If truly Aaron and I are screaming into the void, then that's fine. We are spending time together and having fun, I hope, and learning new skills. We are making connections with new people, and we are telling stories together. Aaron would say that this is the tapestry into which life itself is woven, or something equally poetic, and I am not much of a poet, so I will say that I do think art is important, and that I do think art is vital to us in some sense. And what I am interested in the most right now is the process, the procedure through which we make a thing. As to why it is important, that's a personal take. Let me tell you why I'm doing it and what that means, really. I look around and I see a lot of worry and disunity. There are some political oopsies I don't want to talk about, but fundamentally believe that the very best thing we can do in this time, aside from resisting the forces which seek to make our world a worse place, when we are able, is to make art, to make things, to draw and to sing and to imagine worlds and people whose problems are more easily solved with a sword or a staff or a magical gun of some sort, rather than the seemingly impossible work of restructuring our dystopian society. I mean, if you are in a place where you can do that, please do so. Forget about art for a minute and heal the world in a more pragmatic way. But for the rest of us, we can either despair or we can make stuff. Again, that's over-intellectualizing a simple thing. I like to do that because it makes me sound smarter in my head, smarter than I actually am. But that's really it. I think we should all create in this time things that interest us and things that can connect us. The last thing is, I think, critical: connection. So my son talked about this recently on a trip to Japan, and it really stuck with me. So he's a far kinder and more open-hearted and clear-minded person than I ever will be. But really, that idea really stuck with me. Community, connection, and creation. These are the things that will get us through these months and years, and we will likely look back at them as the things that kept us sane. I think I'll leave it at that, guys, before it starts sort of sounding too much like a manifesto, like a man-e-fisto, Kit Fisto from Star Wars. What's your favorite fist-based character? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for listening. If you did stick with me through this long thing that I did, and have an absolutely magical day. Thank you very much.